I start to think about other areas where I might wander. The November daylight will soon be diminishing, so I press on to search for Blackfriars Road, where I hope to visit the Time and Tide Museum, an institution dedicated to portraying the long, complex maritime history of Great Yarmouth. I am searching for an industrial Victorian brick building where, from the 1880s until 1989, locally caught herrings were cured and prepared for export throughout the globe. In my London boarding school childhood, I periodically, and I hasten to add, reluctantly, tackled a Yarmouth kipper for many a breakfast. Still half asleep, I had trouble picking through its multiplicity of fine bones that often get caught in my throat. Hoping not to attract the disciplinary gaze of my teacher, I frequently pushed much of the kipper aside. Dutch, Scottish, and English fishing vessels once crowded into Yarmouth's safe harbour that would have been surrounded, as Dickens describes the scene, by gasworks, rope walks, boat builders' yards, shipwrights' yards, shipbreakers' yards, caulkers' yards, riggers' lofts, smiths' forges, and a great litter of such places. Nearby, local women, as well as the Scotties, who had moved from Scotland by train to Yarmouth for work in the herring industry, laboured, gutting with deft hands and sharp knives, and preparing the catch for curing, packing, and pickling. When the hundreds of fishing boats, with their sails set out for sea at night with lanterns attached to prevent collisions, one might have heard the boys of nearby Galston singing, "Herrings galore, pray master, gay master, luff the little herring boat to shore. Pray God send you 8 or 9 last, fair gains all, good weather, all herrings, no dogs." According to the historian John Grieve Knoll, this ditty would have been kept up until the greetings of their noisy escort had been acknowledged by the crew, who threw them biscuits. In the late 20th century, however, this prosperous trade precipitously came to an end. 2 world wars and overfishing destroyed it. But, rescued from neglect and vandalism, the original smokehouse still stands. In the corners of the restored smokehouse, pungent traces of smoke and fish oil linger to haunt the museum visitor, a residual odor that the recent architects refused to expel from the building. While searching for the museum and attempting to follow the map the landlord had given me, I become entangled within and baffled by side streets leading me farther and farther away from the seafront. Unexpectedly, I find myself stepping into a completely different world. As opposed to the forsaken, deserted Golden Mile, this area is alive. There is vitality here. Rough and ready storefronts are open and flourishing. Lugging shopping bags and pushing prams, people pass me by. Others enter doors of tall, run-down 19th century boarding houses. Some pause and chat with one another. Children scatter like blown leaves down the pavement. There is nothing aimless here. Everyone has somewhere to go. But I am hopelessly lost. I stop a passerby to ask the way. A kindly elderly man listens carefully to my request. Smiling, he takes my arm and tells me he doesn't speak English. He leads me to a cafe and gently gestures that I can get directions here. I soon realize that I have wandered into an impoverished district of Great Yarmouth that is almost entirely Portuguese-speaking. Everyone around me has come from some place else. Later, I learned that Portuguese is the second most spoken language in Great Yarmouth. In the 1760s, Jews from Portugal had fled here to escape persecution. Indeed, nearby is an old Jewish cemetery. But now, the influx of Portuguese migrants has come to this town from not only Portugal, but also its colonies, past and present. From places like Cape Verde, Angola, Mozambique, Equatorial Guinea, Brazil, and East Timor. The population is presently as much African Portuguese as Portuguese. These people have left difficult economic conditions elsewhere in search of better opportunities in England. Sometimes, with the help of recruiting agencies, they have found work in agriculture and the food processing businesses, sugar beets, potatoes, and peas. Most recently, since 1986, through what was once the EU's Freedom of Movement Act, a majority of immigrants have arrived not only to harvest crops, but also to work hard hours in turkey processing factories. Sometimes discriminated against, accused of taking away jobs, housing, and scarce resources, as well as periodically becoming victims of anti-immigration sentiments, particularly during the period of Brexit. Many have been forced to live in the most run-down sections of Great Yarmouth, but over the years they have brought this area back to life. The entrepreneurial among them have taken down the plywood boards that smothered destitute shops and have opened Portuguese bars, cafes, restaurants, hair salons, bakeries, mini-markets, funeral parlors, and cultural centers to create a thriving, regenerated community. They have breathed life into what was run down and neglected. I entered the cafe to ask directions. A glowing and audible warmth of people congregating on a midday Saturday surrounds and reassures me. Blue enamel tables full of friends, families, and children drinking rich, milky coffee, eating pastel de nata, custard tarts, bifana, pork sandwiches, and roasted sardines crowd the cafe's interior. A mounted TV blasts out soap operas from Portugal. Gesturing, laughing, confiding, even disputing, the neighbors gather to compose what to the naive eye seems to be a portrait of belonging and security, momentarily released from being an outsider, and the experience of watching some Yarmouth residents cross to the other side of the street when one appears, or fretting about, why did I choose to come to this part of the world? The customers appear to be home, though what do I know? I indulge in a custard tart, and speaking as loudly as I can over the clatter of dishes and dinner voices, I ask a person behind the counter how I might find the Time and Tide Museum. She leads me out and generously walks me most of the way. Still hungry, I have a late lunch at the museum's cafe, and then wander through its rooms that take the observer through time, starting with the Ice Age, and introduce one to the variety of cultures now residing in the city. For an hour or two, I walk by severed bits and pieces of the past, including so-called amputated waxed arms and hands displaying marine tattoo artists' work. The extended fingers are tempting to reach and hold. A sign begs visitors not to touch. Pleased with my visit, I re-enter the streets, and this time, not caring if I get lost, wander in the direction of my hotel. Soon I find myself within the grounds of the great Yarmouth Minster. Erected originally in 1101, St. Nicholas is an imposing edifice that my landlord had proudly told me over breakfast is the third largest parish church in England. Its towers are just 2 feet below that of the cathedral. The sinking light of late afternoon casts lugubrious shadows across its locked Norman entrance. I carry on and walk through its cemetery, occasionally pausing to stare at some barely legible inscription. I ghoulishly wonder if I might find the grave from which in the 1820s Thomas Smith, a professional resurrectionist, stole a female body. For half a mile, a paved path cuts through the grounds that have been purposefully allowed to grow wild. The resulting tangle of grasses and branches offers shelter to the wildlife that finds refuge among the weeds, the stooped trees, and erect evergreens. A late afternoon breeze brushes the undergrowth. A young mother, pushing a stroller carrying new life, passes me by. Their presence in the cemetery tenders yet one more example of the jumble of decay and revival that has dogged me ever since leaving the First Down Hotel early this morning. Throughout the day, my walk has repeatedly taken me through contradictory visions of emptiness and fullness, past structures that were once splendid, later ruined, and eventually restored to attain, for better or worse, some sort of new life. I have trod through neighborhoods that have declined and then revived, and now I am strolling past a minster that has suffered damage, been altered, and then rebuilt in 1962. During the Second World War, the church was bombed and gutted by fire. Even the insects, birds, and rabbits buzzing, flitting, and burrowing among the tombstones in this minster's graveyard are reminders of this pervasive and repetitive pattern of loss and renewal. The diagonal path leads me almost back to the lone beach where many hours ago I had begun my day. The sun begins to sink behind lowering dark clouds, drifting in columns to finish the day. A dark haze descends over the beach. A pale full moon beckons the coming of an early night. I reach the doors of my hotel just as light disappears. If I were Charles Dickens, this is the time I would be leaving my room in the Royal Hotel on Waterloo Road and beginning one of my night walks. In early January 1849, Dickens, who had come to Great Yarmouth to gather material for his David Copperfield, walked south along the coast to Lowestoft through the dark of night and back the following day, a distance of nearly 30 miles. During these rambles, he tempered his sleeplessness. But I am not Dickens. I climb the stairs and soon lose consciousness in my sloping, slightly uncomfortable bed.